Where are we coming from today? We have Venezuela, Canada, that's 2. I'm going to count today. Russia, U.S., Spain, Malta, Pakistan, Yemen, Greece, that's 9. Bahrain, 10. Mexico, 11. Peru, 12. Yemen, 13. 14, Belarus. Russia comes in at 16. Argentina, 17.
Wow.
Sound, Philippines, 18. Sina, try to refresh the page, or you might need to come back in. You can't see me, Safa. Really? If you can't see me or hear me, and you can't see Shanthi or hear Shanthi, Egypt, that's 20, then that means it's just an individual problem, it seems, because I think most of us are okay. So you might want to refresh your screen. If that doesn't work, you can exit completely out and come back in. So Noir, also, if you don't hear us, it might be your connection, or check your settings, your microphone, turn it up. Right. So if you see my name, Jason R. Levine, that got me confused for a moment. That's our dear friend and expert in support, Vishal. And I am, just so everyone understands during the class, and then we'll go right to Shanthi, but let me just, this is me. This is me, Jace. I am do you see the big green font there? That's me. So I'll be typing during the class sometimes to put some things in that Shanti's saying, just to make sure we repeat them. And I just want to introduce Shanthi for just a moment.
Jason,
Yes.
can I just ask you, I need to just talk to Vishal. The PowerPoint presentation, I need you to go from the beginning, and I can't move my slides at the moment. So
Vishal.
I don't know whether Vishal has seen me.
No?
Vishal, I can't move the slides.
Shanthi, you have the control. I mean, please.
Yeah, but
can you try right now?
It's not moving. It's frozen.
It's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Either me or Jason, we can switch the slide for you. That's not a problem.
I know, but I can't
So
see
are we
them.
good to go?
No, because I can't see the slides.
She can't see them.
All I've got at the beginning now is student practice.
Okay, well, let's
Okay,
wait.
you cannot see the slides. Okay, please do one thing. You close the class and then come back in.
Leave the class?
Yep, and come back.
All right, I'll do that. Okay.
I will introduce you to everyone here.
Okay.
Okay.
Same class.
Today, everyone, I think you know, some of you from last week, Shanthi is a teacher who focuses especially on, in this order, I feel, of course, English teaching, but vocabulary development, and in particular, idioms. And then even more specifically, she has many business English clients, and she's been developing great materials that she shares around the internet through her blog. And she's very active on Facebook and Scoop It and some other places where she's sharing materials she makes that she uses to teach English to her clients, but also she's growing a network of teachers and students all over the world who are very interested in the clear and humorous ways that she puts her idioms into context. And of course, I love that she focuses a lot on collocations with what she does. And she's also someone who has a great eye for content. So when she scoops it and shares it, you'll definitely want to follow not just the content she creates, but she's very good and generous also content that's out there. So it's exciting to have her participating in this MOOC as a presenter because she has such great materials, and also to be connected with her as a colleague. So without further ado, if Shanthi, if you're back in action here, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I just gave a sort of general introduction.
Right, okay, great. Thank you, Jason. You can hear me, Jason?
Yes, I can.
Great. Everyone else can hear me? Great. Well, thank you very much, Jason, first of all, for inviting me to participate in this MOOC. Thank you very much for all of you to attend. This is the second time, so thank you so much for your patience. Okay, as you can see, my name is Shanthi Cumaraswamy Street. I'm based in London. Some of you were wondering where I'm based. And I have been an English language trainer for the last 4 years. Prior to that, before becoming an English language trainer, I was in the world of finance. After university, which was back in '89, I know I'm very old, I joined the finance world, and for 20 years, I was in areas such as investment management. In 2009, when most of you probably heard, we came into the credit crunch, and life got, thank you, we came into the credit crunch. Life became very difficult in the finance world, and I got made redundant for the third time, not so great. I decided enough was enough, and I chose to change career. I'd always been interested in languages. I'm half Italian. I speak fluent Italian. And I decided, what else could I do with my life after 20 years in one industry? And I thought, you know, I really enjoy languages. I've always been interested in English literature, and I thought, let me retrain as an English language trainer. So I did my training. That was by the end of 2009. By 2000, I was ready, and I decided one thing: I'm going to be a freelancer. I didn't want to work with a company. I didn't want to be employed. And pretty soon after my training for my CELTA, I decided that actually I wanted to concentrate in teaching adults. I'm not so good with children, I'm afraid. And most importantly, I wanted to concentrate working in the area of business English. I didn't want to throw away what was 20 years of business experience. So over the last 4 years, I have very much built my client bank through business English, teaching that way. And so now what I've done 4 years on is I very much concentrate on working on intensive courses. So I work with a lot of my clients come from abroad, mainly from Europe at the moment. And I work as a host tutor, so which means that I run intensive courses of maybe 1 to 2 weeks, 3 weeks. My clients come to stay with me, and they have this full immersion experience with me and my family, and I teach them business English. I teach them all sorts of things for them, and I have over the last 4 years met some incredible people. I wish I'd done this career years ago, but I feel that my business experience certainly brings in a lot of, it does help me enormously in English language teaching. Apart from that, I also run online courses, so I've been very much actively involved with Skype lessons for the moment. At some stage, I'd like to work more towards things like on the WizIQ platform. Am I a mentor? I'd like to say that we are. I think more and more English language trainers should see themselves more as mentoring, particularly when you're dealing with a lot of business English clients. Business people are, you know, very much, thank you, very much, you know, high, they have high positions in their companies. But of course, sometimes they feel very vulnerable when it comes to learning English, because suddenly you've got someone who's right up there in their organization, and they come to you and they feel very vulnerable. So I think as a business English teacher, you're not just giving them the language, you're also helping them to feel confident in front of their peers, in front of their colleagues and partners in the business world. So I spend a lot of time actually trying to show them different ways on how they can portray themselves in a language that is not their own. There we go. So that's me in a nutshell, a nice idiomatic expression that I just brought in there that we'll be talking about. One of the things also that I started doing more and more, which some of you may have come across, is blogging. I discovered the wonderful world of blogging more recently this year, the beginning of this year, and wow, I'm enjoying myself and it's wonderful. And I have learned a lot from my my peer groups, people like Jason, people like Sylvia, you know, so many people out there that are writing blogs, and I've really found that great. It's a great way of building also your personal learning network, and also sharing. I think certainly in the English language community, what we say is sharing is caring, isn't it? You can't have enough of that. Actually, I've learned so much, not just from my students, but from my fellow teachers, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from more and more of you. First of all, may I thank some of you, a lot of you who did the pre-class assignments. Fantastic. You've had some great ideas. And in fact, a lot of the ideas that I'm going to be showing you in this is very much something that you've you shared in your pre-class assignments. So we are already on the same wavelength. Here we go. That's another little idiomatic expression. So great to see that, you know, you share very much the same sort of ideas. So without further ado, what I wanted to do was, as I say, to look at how I've introduced idioms into the business English class. Most people, most learners, as you know, are fascinated by idioms. You know, a lot of my clients, you know, they'll sort of talk about it, and certainly from the blog posts that I've seen, incredible. I mean, ever since I started writing my blog posts and I started talking about idiomatic expressions, the reactions that I get from people, it's just like, you know, we just want to learn more, and we want to know more and more. But first of all, let's have a look at this, because what I want to ask you is, first of all, what is an idiom? And a lot of you came up with some excellent answers. No secret here. It's basically a phrase whose meaning isn't clear from the words in it. So let's take an example. You have an idiom like, it's raining cats and dogs. Now, I had a very interesting number of people have asked me this about it's raining cats and dogs. We see it a lot. I've noticed on Facebook pages a lot of people talking about this and saying, well, you know, English native speakers say it's no longer used in spoken English. And whilst I do agree with a lot of people, you don't often hear it. You see it a lot in written English. And in fact, a lot of English course books do refer to that. And of course, it means it's raining heavily. And so, although you don't necessarily hear it from native speakers, you will see it in written English and in also the media. So here I thought I'd just give you a nice little picture. And did you know, and I noticed some of you did mention this in your pre-class assignment, that there are around 25,000 idiomatic expressions in the English language. I would be really interested to know how many idiomatic expressions you think you have in your own languages, because, you know, this was quite a surprise to me. No wonder our learners can't have enough of learning idiomatic expressions. But more importantly, why are idioms so important? And again, you had a lot of people came up with your own ideas. I'd like to share some of my ideas with you, and I'm sure you will have already had an idea about this. First and foremost, they're a part of our daily speech in any language. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Lourdes. They give color to language. They're part of our daily speech. When you speak to native speakers in whatever language, they will pepper, metaphorical language here, their language with idioms. They make the target language, you know, absolutely. Why just talk simple English when you can, you know, talk like, you know, I'm starving, I could eat a horse. Well, you're not going to eat a horse, but you're just going to talk about it. You're just going to use that sort of language. And it just sounds, it just gives you the warmth, the depth, like some of you have said, the color of the language. You know, after all, language is about us. It's about people. We make the language. And they give the learner a much better understanding of the target culture. So whatever language you are learning, idiomatic expressions come from traditions, come from our culture. I recently wrote a blog post about idiomatic expressions based on nationalities and countries. And I was amazed by the amount of comments I got, which was incredible. And I thank very much everyone who shared. But what people said to me was they had questions about why do we have some of these idiomatic expressions. For example, we often say it's all Greek to me, to mean that it's something that is not understandable. And some people said, but why do you say it's all Greek? Now, without making any particular research, going into much research, I think, well, it could stem from our background. If you think about the British Empire, of us going out, and we had a big archaeological tradition, going out into Greece, going into Egypt, discovering, exploring those civilizations, and of course not understanding the languages. So of course this then comes out that it's all Greek to me, or there are, you know, that could be Chinese whispers, how double Dutch, absolutely. So when people sort of thought, well, I don't quite understand that, you talk about double Dutch. So a lot of this comes from the culture, and I find idioms so fascinating because it really gives you, when you start delving into those idioms, what is it about the culture? What is it telling me? For example, my recent blog post was on business idioms to do with horses. Horses, when you think about horses, this majestic animal, you think, well, the British love horses. Other than dogs, they love their horses. So when I started researching into this, I realized that there's so many idiomatic expressions linked to horses, and that just can give you some idea of the British link to this and our traditions. You know, Queen Elizabeth II, she loves horses, and we have a big tradition on horse racing in all that areas. So, you know, no surprise why our learners would want to know much more about idioms. The other thing I've noticed is that learners often feel that if they master a few idiomatic expressions, they are considered far more advanced than they perhaps actually are. Oh, I'm sorry, Mohammed, that you don't have some video. Maybe somebody can help him there. But a lot of people say, well, you know, if I get those idiomatic expressions, I'll learn them, and then I'll use them in my spoken language, and that would be great. And I think absolutely, yes, and that's why a lot of learners want to learn these. What I'd like to think, though, as teachers, perhaps we need to sometimes just be conscious of how our students are going to use them. I've had occasions where we've gone through it, we've practiced it, and then I'll have students who are very keen to practice their language, and then perhaps they'll start introducing expressions that are not necessarily in the right context of their conversation. And particularly when we're talking business English, this could be, you know, not necessarily awkward, but just the wrong idiomatic expression. So just need to be conscious, I think, of when we're talking and when we get them to do their practice, or we get them to start a conversation, or they're role-playing, just saying, yes, that's great, but the context has to be appropriate or in the right way, so then people understand what you mean when you're using those idiomatic expressions. Okay, so what I'd like to do here is, what I'm going to focus on is looking at how I teach idioms in my business English classes. There are different ways of teaching idioms, and I would really welcome your ideas on how you do them, how you've introduced them, because I'm here also to learn from yourselves. So what I'm going to do is go through these, which is looking at choosing 5 to 10 idioms based on themes with you. Very important. I can never stress enough, we always have to put these idioms in context, particularly when you're talking to business English students. If they're talking about into meetings, or if they're giving presentations, they need to put them in the right context. The students can also, to give them practice, create their own conversations. They can role play those conversations. And I will stress this later. We need to keep everything real for our students. The students need to know that these idiomatic expressions are used daily, are used in authentic material. Very much, it is incredibly important for them. So let's look at this. So my first one is, I always say to fellow teachers is choose between 5 to 10 idioms and base them on themes. Most of the idioms, as I know most of you will know, there are very straightforward categories for idioms. They could be food, they could be animals, they could be sports, and very much they come under those themes. Now, when we're talking about business English, perhaps you could look at themes based on meetings, telephone conferencing. There are the various idiomatic expressions you could then put together and think, well, those would be a good idea to look at. Don't choose more than 10 idioms. It becomes too much, and then it starts confusing everyone. I think so 5 to 10. In fact, my posts often just have the maximum of 10 idioms. And again, choose the themes. Here, for example, I've chosen some pictures here which are that I've used in my blog. So based on animals, like this week's post on horses, communication, food, and sports. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to share my screen with you, because I'd like you to have a look at what I've done on my post. So if everything goes well, I am going to start sharing my screen with you. So if you could just bear with me one moment. Thank you so much. I'm seeing a lot of comments going in, and it's really, drawing idioms can help students remember them. Yeah, Maria, absolutely. I wish I was more of an artist, but I'm not, so I tend to sort of pick pictures that are on Google and then try and share them. Again, I'm initializing my screen sharing, so it's going to take a few minutes, so do bear with a few seconds. I wouldn't like it to say, but one of the things that I also find with idioms is that, I don't know about yourselves, but where I've talked with my business students is that I've had fantastic conversations where we've talked about, we started on an idiomatic expression, and then I asked them what they could have as a similar expression in their own language, and then that's taken us off into different areas, and we've looked at all sorts of ways we can do this. Yes, I'm trying to, sorry, my screen is taking a bit longer to share. So I'm going to see, an image illustrates 1,000 words. Absolutely, yes. While
we're waiting, can I ask you a question?
Sure, please.
Alberto just had a great question. We hear it all the time as teachers. And it may be a question Alberto already knows the answer to and wants your opinion, or maybe he's not sure. But what's the difference between idioms and slang? How would you answer that?
Okay, well, idiomatic, I would say that slang, I would use it is more in an informal context. Idiomatic expressions can still be used in formal context. Certainly when you're talking about business English and you're talking to business students, your internet, sorry, pardon me, excuse me whilst I try again my screen share.
Shanthi, what Vishal is saying is just to accept the settings. Is that, can you accept the settings?
No, it hasn't. It's just initializing my screen sharing. It's not asking me to accept anything.
Done that. That part's been done.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. I haven't had that asked. Sorry, is Vishal speaking?
Okay, minimize this. Minimize the. Yes.
Can I minimize?
Hello?
Vishal, what would you like me to do?
Yes, minimize the screen and minimize this class browser.
Okay.
Maybe the settings which you have to accept. find this window. So could you please just check that?
Minimize this window. No, it's not asking me to accept anything. Shall I close it and try again?
Yeah, that would be fine as well. Please do
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I'm going to stop that, yes. And then I'm going to try again. Sorry, folks, otherwise don't worry, we just keep going. I'm going to try it again. Start screen sharing. And then hopefully... Sorry, Jason, did you want to say something?
I agree with what you said, and I just wanted to add, because there was another question here too about, you know, the whole issue of formality and is very important, but I think you'll agree, Shanthi, that it's more about appropriateness. So I think the idea of, you know, what's polite and what's rude, what is street English and what is office English, those are not always the best parameters for us to consider, because you can be in a business English situation and hear of an idiom that you thought was, you know, street English or something. Oh my, because the situation can be so relaxed and informal that that's appropriate.
Yes.
On the other hand, right, you can be in a reverse kind of situation, and a very serious discussion in a very informal place can mean that certain idioms, phrasal verbs that are usually in more formal. So it really, it's there's not a perfect way to say, okay, this situation is always this language. That can be very hard for students because, you know, you want to know, when do I use this and where do I use that?
Yes.
But it can also be more liberating, because if you try to think, I have to learn and memorize this for this and this and this, since it's not like that, it's more of, you know, what are the most frequently used idioms across situations. I mean, I think that that's what I like about what you focus on is, you know, we like the colorful idioms are great, but if we have idioms like, you know, you might as well blah blah blah, you know, you can use, you know, you might as well in a conversation on the street when you're a teenager, or, you know, in the boardroom of a corporation. So I think the frequency, like you said, making it real, you know, and using very high frequency idioms that work in many situations is one way to go.
Yes, yes, no, absolutely. Yeah, and you're absolutely right about slang and appropriateness. And it's funny because I sort of I sort of compare it to when I sometimes speak in Italian, where you will learn certain expressions, and this is the danger. You can learn certain expressions and think that it's particularly fine to say it in certain contexts, and then sometimes I've opened my mouth and then suddenly someone will say to me, oh, actually, Shanthi, that wasn't quite appropriate, you shouldn't have done that. And I think, oh gosh, I didn't realize. So certainly when in terms of the business English scenario, you know, when in terms of trying to tell our clients and our students when is the right thing and how to say things, what I try to do is really, when I'm putting it in context, but I'm also trying to show them, I think this is where authentic material is vital. It's really important to show your students as much authentic material, as much resource to show them where it's used, where these idiomatic expressions, show them how they can explore that and see where the choice of words are and how they're being used. Because also in media, depending on the sort of newspapers you buy, then, you know, you just have to be careful and have that conversation with your students and say, well, yeah, that's not quite appropriate. You're never going to be able to teach your students everything. They have to kind of sort of learn themselves, but you can certainly introduce the variety that's available in authentic material. And for example, if I take the Financial Times, I often give group classes to finance groups, and you look at the Financial Times, certainly you're talking about upper intermediate and advanced level students, you take an article, and the article will be full of metaphors, because we're not just talking idioms here, we're talking about metaphorical language, we're talking idiomatic expressions, and if you just go through that, that will give you plenty of material to work on and saying, look at what is available, look at how are we using this language, why they meant it. And I think also one of the things that I've found that has worked with my clients is where they have tried to find a similar expression in their own languages, and then they can sort of fit that appropriateness in their own language. And that's what I've looked at it in terms of how to differentiate between slang, between idioms. Everyone, I'm finding it difficult to share my screen with you. Somehow there's a delay. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to bother with that. You can see examples of my blog post, which will be posted on the Facebook page and will be posted here on the courseware. What I was going to do was really just give you some ideas of the themes that I've used. So, so what you can do is that. Otherwise, maybe Sylvia, if you can, you could perhaps add the link on there. The article I wanted was really my business idioms, the first one that I was going to add to that. So, but don't worry, it's not a problem, because all I was going to do was just show you some examples, which I'll show you on my Facebook page. So if you want to have a look at that,
Shanthi,
we can then go through some of the things.
You have the conversation. Do you see the conversation? Do you want me to open
yes.
that up? Do you want to look at that?
No. No, that one I was going to do. I was going to do that later. I was going to show that later.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was going to go. No, the examples I was going to do was to show you. Yes, thank you, Sylvia. I think Sylvia's put that on the link.
Well, we
you
will
can
look at
grab
the blog after. I promise we'll get everybody to. Shanthi has a really great blog called "The World Is Your Oyster." She also does some other great things on Facebook, but we will certainly put those things out there so people who don't know about them will go. And it's very easy to use Shanthi's blog. She gears it for students, not teachers first. So students who are teachers, like we have here, it's really meant for you. It's very easy to use.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that small plug, Jason. Okay, let me go. Okay, so have a look at it at your leisure. So this was really the themes I was talking to you about. The ones that I've written on my blog are things like to do with horses I mentioned, animals, cats and dogs. I did one on communication, and I did something on food. So I choose the theme. So you can, as I said, you can choose the sort of themes that you want. You don't have to, and think what, depending on what you're preparing for your class, and then look at the sort of themes you want. But put them into context. Context is everything. Please don't teach them in isolation, because once it sounds, once you start teaching an idiom in isolation, it's just meaningless to them, particularly for our business English language students. The students need to understand them and need to, of course, learn how to use these idioms appropriately. So we could present these idioms in context. So what we could do is through simple sentences. And here again, I was going to try and share my screen, but as I'm having problems with that, what I would suggest again is have a look at my blog post. My blog post will give you the example sentences. That's what I tend to do. I give you, for example, you can say you put something in a nutshell. To put something in a nutshell, give an explanation and give an example sentence for that. Let me just try and see if I can share my screen, just see whether for whatever reason my computer has decided that it's going to work faster. If it doesn't, don't worry, we will move on. No, it's taking too long, so I'm going to stop there. Forget that. Yes, I'm going to close that. Sentences. So, and just cover that. Give them some examples, or you could also put together some simple conversations. So, if you had a small group, then put together a submission, and what you could do is then allow your students to have some practice. So give them an example. So something like a simple, Let me show you here. I just put together a sample conversation. So you've got here the promotion. Everyone likes a promotion. Oh, great. I'm glad you can see the pictures and idioms, Satyana. That's great. So here we go. Tony and John are speaking. So, Tony, hello, John. You asked to see me?
I want to be Tony.
Yes, I did.
Can I be Tony?
Can you can be Tony. And I'll be John. Okay, right. I'll be John. Joanna. Come on, I'll be Joanna. Let's do. Yes.
Okay. So I'm Tony and you're Joanna John.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, John, you asked to see me?
Yes, I did. Take a seat, Tony. Look, I'll come straight to the point. We'd like you to head our Shanghai branch.
Really? Oh, wow. I'd heard on the grapevine that you were looking for someone, but I never dreamed it would be me.
Well, we did that. So, simple conversation. Woohoo! We're off to Shanghai. So, introduce that two idiomatic expressions, come straight to the point, and I heard on the grapevine. Thank you, Claudia. Clap, clap, clap. Aren't we good? And so, here we go. Sample conversation introduces immediately two idiomatic expressions. Then what you could do is divide the students into groups. So if you have a few, depending on the numbers, of course, then divide them into 3s or 4s, then give them 3 or 4 idioms per group, and then ask them to start creating their own conversations. Of course, beforehand, if you'd already discussed the idioms with them, you've sort of worked out their understanding, what they understand from them, and then have a time for them to start creating their conversations. Go around, give them some ideas. In fact, I always find with my business English students, they'll often start coming up with anecdotes, giving me some example of what happened at the last meeting they had, and oh, how funny it was, and all this sort of thing. So, you know, give them plenty of time to create their conversations. And then what's also, of course, is important is then for them to start role-playing those conversations. And fine, we all do role plays and we all find that. But what I find particularly important here is the peer observation and the peer feedback. I think what's very important is if those groups then start sharing and role playing their conversations, what would be good is, of course, if their peers then are able to say whether they understood those idiomatic expressions, and how they understand, you know, what their understanding was, because from there they'll be able to understand whether those idiomatic expressions were used appropriately and in the right context. If it wasn't understood, then at that point you know that your student hasn't quite got the meaning of that idiomatic expression and how to use them appropriately. I'm going to do a little aside here because I've often been asked by, you know, some other fellow teachers have asked me, what's the point of teaching idiomatic expressions to language learners, particularly in the business arena? Because to be honest, the people who are going to really use idiomatic expressions are going to be native speakers, not really non-native speakers. And in our business world now, more and more people using business English are non-native speakers of English. And that's quite true, because unless you're really comfortable with using idiomatic expressions, you're unlikely to use them, particularly in a business English arena, because you're going to feel too insecure, you don't want to make a fool of yourself. What I always say to people is, you might not use them initially. You know, it takes a while to feel confident in using them in the appropriate scenario. But what is going to be very important for our business English students is for them to understand that they're doing business with native speakers what the native speaker is using. As we all know, we love using idiomatic expressions. But if you are in the middle of a meeting with a native speaker, whether they be Americans, whether they be British, Australians, Indians, if you don't understand that that's been an idiomatic expression, you're going to sit there wondering what on earth they've just said. Irish, sorry to Sylvia, of course. And so I think more than being able to use them, for me, in my opinion, it's far more important for them to understand what that native speaker has just said. Because often native speakers speakers forget that their audience are also non-native speakers of English. And they will pepper their presentation with idiomatic expressions. And if you don't understand them, you're sitting there feeling rather foolish. And a lot of people will not put their hand up and say, I didn't understand what they meant. So I think that is very important, just to have an understanding. So the more your clients can read business press, then the more they have an understanding. They don't necessarily have to use it. They just need to understand. And one thing I do want to say here, and I've been thinking about in the last few days, particularly when I did my blog post on nationalities, is the difference. We have often the difference between American and British English. The same goes for the differences in idiomatic expressions. We talk about cultures, and of course there are going to be idiomatic expressions that are typical to British English, and they're going to be the ones that are typical to American English and Australian and Irish. And often we don't even understand each other. So, you know, what someone will say, well, I never heard that said. Well, you think, well, maybe not, because perhaps you are dealing mainly with American clients as opposed to British clients. So often when I'm speaking to my clients, one of the things, part of my needs analysis is, what is your client? Who are you talking to? What sort of native speaker are you dealing with? Are you talking to English people? Are you talking to Australians, Irish? Are you talking to Americans? Because their idiomatic language is going to be slightly different from each other. Did I suddenly freeze? I'm sorry, Lourdes. I'm moving. I hope you can see me again. So very important to say idiomatic expressions will be also very different depending on your cultures. Now moving on, let's move on. I think, well, I'm almost coming to the end of my presentation actually. The most important thing I say to everyone, please, please, please keep it real. All our clients, everyone, is that students need to know that real people are using these idioms. That these idioms, like raining cats and dogs, is not just sitting in a course book. It's actually being used day in, day out in everyday business language, in everyday business conversations. So therefore, please use as much authentic material as you can. I know you do. I'm a big fan of, particularly when you're teaching business people. The more real you keep it, the more resonance it has for people, the more they're likely to remember. As we all know, particularly with people who are kinesthetic learners, the more they use it, the more they feel it, the more it is personal to them, the more they're going to remember. So, you know, using newspaper articles. My best resource, and I'm sure you will tell me the same, my best resource has always been my clients. My clients give me everything I need because they're the most interesting people, particularly my business English clients, particularly clients who've had experience in business. They give me everything I need. You know, they start opening their mouth and I will suddenly think of a business idiom, or I'll think about an idiomatic expression, I think brilliant. Or they might even come up with them. And then I think, fantastic, where have you seen them? Why? What have you done? And, you know, from there, an entire a lesson can come out of that. And we can explore using our tools and our online tools. And I tell you, Google search, fabulous tool. I'm never far away from it. The moment we talk or when we discover things, I'm on that, looking, let's go, let's explore, let's look at that, let's find out what it's all about. Wikipedia, it might be accurate, it might not be accurate. But for me, I think at the end of the day, as teachers, we're not there to just teach our clients, our students. We're there to teach them to learn, to help them discover themselves these things, to want to find out more and more. And I think that's where we are mentoring. Yes, the word is yours. The more you learn, the more you want to learn. That's how I always see it. So Google search, pick up an idiom, pick out something like fat cats. Fat cats has been used, I mean, since 2008, cats. And so, you know, pick something up and try and share. I was going to share this article with you, which is an article in the newspaper. We'll put this on the Facebook page. This is an article from that's available in the UK, the Daily Mail. So if you pick up an article in the newspaper, you'll see it, you'll see headlines. Often headline news shows you, and they'll use idiomatic expressions. Let's pick that, show them, and say, well, you know, this is what we have. Here, for example, I picked up this picture. So this fat cat. Yes, so here we are, barely enough to feed me, let alone the cat. Yeah, and I still won my bonus. Yeah, so we fat cats are known forever. Let the cat out of the bag. Absolutely, I will divulge all my secrets. Absolutely. So, you know, I think it's great. The more you can look at articles, and I'm always looking at things. One of the things I found, particularly in the UK, we have, and I think it's available online, is an online newspaper called This Week or The Week. And it's very short articles, and they can be in business English, and they can be for general English. So, you know, certainly I'm just going to write that down. I think here it's called This Week. And sometimes some of our students find it quite difficult to read proper newspapers. They're too long, or maybe, you know, at their lower level. But there's some short articles from there. So, you know, use that for them and show them where they can see this sort of language. And one of the things also I always say to my clients is, tell me, what is a similar expression in your language? Because if they have similar expressions, let me give you an example. I was talking to my mother yesterday when I posted my blog on business idioms related to horses. And there's that famous idiomatic expression we have, to let the stable, you know, to close the stable door after the horse has bolted. So basically, it's too late. Yes, you're trying to stop something, and it's too late. Well, my mother then said to me, well, actually, yes, we have a similar expression in Italian, but instead of using horses, we use oxen. And you think, great, Mom, thanks. Yes, top banana, Jason, fantastic. Oh, top dog. Top dog is the other one, guys. I'm getting sidetracked here. So you use oxen. So in Italian, you have a different animal. And of course, we have. So sometimes when I say to my clients, the expression you'd have in your own language and the idiomatic expression will be similar in English. And then you can see that. You know, that's how very much I will share my idiomatic expressions with them. The big cheese. Alberto, you're really going for that. Head honcho. Now, for example, head honcho, guys, that's exactly the difference between American English and British English. I only discovered head honcho a few years ago. I had no idea what it was until an American client, not client actually, a friend of mine mentioned head honcho, and I went, head what? And he goes, oh yeah, you know, head honcho. And I went, oh, you mean the big cheese? Oh yeah, top dog. So again, we have all these differences, and you know, we'll have it in all languages. And I just think that just makes the language very interesting. It just makes it, you know, they don't have to get, comes from a Japanese word, does it, Yukiko? Oh, fabulous, interesting. See, you guys are teaching me so much. Listen, I'm coming to the end. I really have it. This wasn't a very long presentation. I just wanted to say I'm almost coming to my end. I want to say, well, you know what? Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. That's a very squishy face on my face. You can find me on my blog, as you know. And I have also a Facebook page, which is linked to my other business that I have, which is Language in the City. I came up with that name because, you know, remember Sex and the City? Well, my colleague and I decided instead of Sex and the City, we'd think of Language in the City. We thought it would just, like, you know, look good. But what I want to say is thank you so much. You'll find my PowerPoint presentation in the Facebook page and also my links to my blog. Thank you very much, Claudia. And, you know, it's great. I love teaching idiomatic expression, but I love my clients. I like to call them clients, not students. They're the best people to help you learn. And you never stop learning. You never stop learning from them. And learning from all of you guys. So, you know, thanks so much for allowing me to talk to you and for participating. And I'm done, I think, at the moment, Jason. Well, ahead of time, which never happens.
Yeah. Can we, let's take some questions, if that's okay. But before the questions, one thing that I see happening a lot here and happens each time we have a class, people saying, oh, can I get this link? I want to see your Facebook page, your blog. And don't worry, we will make everything very easy for you to reach after the class. So there is the chat box. You can copy it. You'll see a little thing that says copy chat, but you don't have to, if you want to get the links to Shanti's social media and her work on her blog and everything else. We have a Facebook page. That's right, Sylvia. We have a Facebook group. Shanti has her own page, Languages in the City, and she has her blog, but also we have created, or I should say Sylvia has created for us, a Facebook group just for this class. So if you like Facebook, definitely you want to, but also I will send that in a mass email that goes to all 2,400 of us. So you'll get that Facebook link. I'll also put it in the course feed. If you don't like Facebook or you can't be on Facebook for certain reasons, that's okay, because we like you to stay in WizIQ also. So Shanti has a class page where you've been participating. And also, Shanti, I'm assuming when you have time, you'll be there to take questions, and also in the Facebook group. And that way you can also post more things that you'd like people to look at and go to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also what I'd love also is all of you to share your ideas on how you've taught idioms and what you found and what you thought has worked.
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, I'm also here to learn. A lot of you have, different ways. There are different ways of doing things, and there's no right way or wrong way. And I'd just like to, and there's one question here I noticed on the chat box was about metaphors and idioms, whether it's worth explaining the difference. Yes, I think so, because of course metaphors, and certainly when you think about the business English world, and particularly financial English, when I teach my finance groups, we have a lot of metaphors, and of course metaphors is giving you that image, whereas an idiomatic expression is slightly different, so you do have to explain that, and metaphorical language is different. And again, this is another area that you could do. You could, branch out. In fact, I've done that in my blog post of introducing metaphors in business, because a lot of the articles that a lot of our clients will see will have a lot of metaphorical language that we use. But yes, it is worth, just showing them the difference between idiomatic language and metaphorical language. But yes, thank you, Claudia. Yeah, we do make a good team. Jason's great, and Sylvia's great, and everyone is great, really.
And our team's just getting stronger thanks to all of the teachers in this MOOC, which is the whole point, is that we are all becoming a team together. How about another question? Motivating techniques, which is a great question. How, especially if students are in isolation in private lessons, somebody said, how do you motivate them? But each class we also always have that question. With adolescents who are, not interested in the curriculum, whatever the age, what are some, and I know you work mainly with adults, but what are some techniques that you recommend for motivating students?
Oh, other than slapping them around the face and telling them, come on, you're here, you've got to do this?
You're speaking metaphorically, I hope.
Metaphorically
totally. Slapping. Not actually.
It depends. I am half Italian, so I do get that fiery part of me sometimes. Motivation. Motivation, it's an interesting one, actually. A lot of students, at the end of the day, let's face it, most people who come and learn business English are not learning it because they want to, they have this joy of learning English. They're doing it because of work. So in terms of how to move, what I always do, it's different for a lot of my students because I teach them on short courses. And so if I have these intensive courses, in terms of motivating them, at the end of the day, I think the best way of motivating these people is to get them to give you that the resource. Tell them, ask questions. Show an interest in them. Really show that you're interested in that person. So every time I start my courses, it's tell me about yourself. Tell me what you do. Tell me and be genuinely interested in your client, because the moment you show interest in them and then explore, and it doesn't have to be totally business focused, it could be about anything else. And quite often, there's business English. They come under the banner of they want to learn business English, but actually all they want is to be able to converse on a whole series of different topics. And for me, my clients are so interesting, that I want to learn. So maybe they'll be talking about the most boring thing in the world, about their job. Maybe their job is really, really technical. But what I try and do is tell me about it. Tell me, because at the end of the day, these people are interested in their own jobs. And most people, we like to talk about us. So let them talk about themselves. And you start doing that. And what I do often is I'm writing down what they're saying. And then I think, great, that was fantastic. Let's pick that language that you've just used. Let's talk about that. And let's get their motivation going once you've shown that, you're interesting to me. You're a person, and I want to know more about you. As soon as you find them interesting, they're not just a student. It's amazing how they open up to you.
Yeah, and what you're saying is when it comes down to it, it's so intuitive that it's and basic, but it's also just like in real life, you want to if you're not connecting to what someone interests and needs are, then what's but what happens is, because we have this textbook we have to follow, this curriculum we have to follow, this vocabulary to cover, this test to prepare for, teachers sometimes mistakenly assume that there's this dichotomy. There's we can talk about you for a minute, we can have some fun for a minute, but then it's back to work, and that's crazy, because the only way that the stuff you have to teach is really going to be learned is when you are connecting it to the everyday interests and needs of it. And moreover, to prepare, especially for business English in the future, interviews, you talk about yourself. When you go out to lunch, you're talking about and all those things about talking about yourself, your experience, your interests. Those are things, that's the kind of vocabulary that they're going to need to catch in English when other people are talking about themselves. So it's, you're going to help with all the skills, I think, by doing
Yes, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, your client is probably going to know far more about their own business in English, because they're probably already doing it. But what they lack is all the language around it. And that's what I often find, that they lack that sort of language. If they're giving a presentation, I'll often say, okay, you're technically fantastic, but keep it natural. And so that is hard.
Stop right here. I hate to cut you off. It's like those radio programs. They're like 15 seconds left. Okay, 15 seconds left. But let's say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye to